Police Department Citizen Liaison Committee. I thought we had resolution towards this at the end of the work session, but following the weekend, there were several comments and emails that suggested that consensus had not been reached. So, Dr. Downs.
Well, I was like yourself. I was thinking that it had been sort of tied up, but then sort of put to bed. But then you emailed me and talked about the concern of some of the council that this was adding sort of a layer that we didn't want, and so there was concern that the police department was autonomous in its area under the city government, and that we didn't want to have any committee doing things or making decisions that the police department was having would cause problems for the police department later. So I think added the second page. The second page, all kind of an addition over the weekend. Is that right?
Yes. Let me, if I may.
Okay, go ahead.
There were two main issues that came out of this discussion. There was a desire by the council to have a group, as we implement the use of tasers in our police department, to do an independent review to make sure that the process was going correctly. The second major goal of this initiative was to have a group that would work hand in hand with the police department and the community to address a variety of community issues, everything from public relations to proactive community policing. And there were several things that were important to that group. In an effort to keep this thing going, I came up with this proposal. Okay?
Wait a minute. You came up with the first page.
We
came up with the first page first,
right.
At the work session. Right.
But the second part, to separate out the taser review,
right,
to be done by independent professionals, that was in an effort to make sure that both goals were met, and met in a way that satisfied the majority of the council members. Now, with that being said, this is simply an attempt at a compromise, and we will feel free to pick it apart or take it apart or do whatever we need to.
Well, I like the sentiment of it, but I think that I was talking with the police chief before the meeting, and I think this could really be handled. He's had outside groups, Sheriff's Association things, review situations in our police department, in other instances. And he and I felt that this possibly could be handled by him administratively. This outside law enforcement review of the taser situation could be handled administratively by him, and then perhaps presented back to this group after that outside review.
So basically what you're saying is he will make the decision who the TRC group is going to be.
Well, he would get a third party, an outside law enforcement group that was trained in taser usage and what was appropriate for taser usage, have them review it, and then he, prior to its presentation to this group, so we would have, a professional law enforcement opinion.
But he's reviewing his own people.
No, he wouldn't be doing the reviewing. He would get this outside
But
group.
he's still getting someone out to review his own people. I think if anybody gets someone, it should be Ada.
Well, that's okay. I mean, that could still be handled administratively. We wouldn't need a whole separate, you know what I'm saying? We wouldn't need a whole separate group, a whole separate taser review group, and we wouldn't have to educate
But this is totally different than what we had talked about and read on in the work session.
It is. Well, it is and it isn't. Okay.
It is, because
Well,
now you're talking about two groups, when we had 7 people from the community group that was gonna do all of this.
Well, right. Well, they still would do all of it, but this just adds an administrative layer before it gets to those people. We have a professional law enforcement opinion, a second outside professional law enforcement opinion, before it gets to this group. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, it makes sense, but
And it doesn't
they're
have
already
to,
gonna review it, and then someone else is gonna review it, and then this group is gonna review it. So that's actually 3 reviews, right?
well, no, I mean, I think it's, okay, here's the thing, okay? This is kind of new to us as a city, you know, we're doing this as a new thing. So we want to make sure we're doing it correctly. That's the sentiment of our whole review process. So with the police department getting an outside,
So you're saying the 7 people can't handle the tasers?
no, I'm saying they can, but before that, let's have another outside professional police opinion prior to presenting it to the Citizen Committee. I think that could be handled administratively. If this wouldn't have to be added to the all this second page wouldn't have to be added to the, we could just go with what we agreed on, but then add this other administratively. Does that seem like a compromise of the compromise?
Since, we just read this thing, so it's kind of just a little confusing.
Yeah, they keep throwing it at us at the last minute. I mean, I get this when I walk in here.
And that's when I got that.
And that's not fair to us. It's not right to try to, make a quick decision on something that's disinformed.
Well, we don't have to make a decision now, but I do have a question about that, Joe. You're pretty much just wanting a professional opinion before you give it to laymen.
I think it would
I
be
think
good.
that's- I think that's
it would
probably
be
a
good
good
because
idea.
it would be like, if we were gonna present something to someone, we would want an outside professional person to look at it and make sure we were doing correctly before we presented it to to an outside, lay group or.
Well, and that takes it out of the hands of our law enforcement too, and puts it in the hands of professionals that work in the same field and have the expertise. And then you don't have, and let me tell you, those guys or ladies in that same profession, just like you doctors, hold each other to a really high standard. So you make it
And they know what
more-
the standards
yeah,
are.
You're right, and we don't.
But I think they have to make that decision.
Yeah,
Who,
I'm
Oh, yeah,
okay with
you
yeah,
got
that.
to
to
do that.
do this. I
I'm
mean,
good with
because naturally, if it's my children, I'm gonna take care of my own house.
Right, I understand.
You would have
Well,
these,
it's-
you would have an internal review for any use of force
Right.
in the police department. So we would first do that. Then if you had someone on the outside, then they would review it. Then we come back to your citizen review.
We're only talking about complaints, not every single
But
time,
for
right?
the tasers, we were talking about, the first
Okay.
series of taser usages, make sure we're doing it correctly. Yes, ma'am.
In the work session, we discussed it in the work session. When we left the work session, we was under the impression that it would be the 7 citizens that the council chose.
Right.
So why don't we go with what we started with from the beginning? And then if there's a problem, we appoint somebody over them or somebody to oversee it. But it's like, we're going against our promise.
This would not be going against our promise at all. This would be having the professional law enforcement review take place before the citizen presentation.
Well, why don't we just, if somebody wants to make a motion, bring up the resolution that was at the work session, they can, let's vote on it. If that fails or passes or whatever, then we move on. If it fails, then we move on to this and start discussing this again. But
It's not all
it's
cases
totally
are
up to
gonna be
them.
where I think, the TRC or whatever the group is, everything is not gonna go to them. It might could just go to this 7-member board and they take care of it. I mean,
Well, I mean,
you don't
particularly
expect anybody to.
particularly the taser use group, because that's something kind of new for everyone. I mean, I think it makes great sense and it's a good compromise for for all the desires of the, we're never gonna have a perfect, resolution that satisfies everybody totally 100%. But I think we could easily accept and pass this resolution knowing that the administrative review was gonna happen on the taser issue, especially before the citizen review, so that we would have the outside professional opinion, solicited.
That was some of the concern, was the professional qualifications and training, and talking about the length of times to do this. We discussed that in the work session as far as the citizen review, through knowing about the investigation. So it does add another layer outside of what you're talking about.
But it's handled administratively, it's not handled through, it wouldn't have to be a separate group organized by this, you know what I'm saying, it's less cumbersome.
Well, if you don't have that professional group, then the only expertise opinion you're going to get is from our law enforcement officers, so that makes it a little more fair if you're getting outside agencies. And again, I agree with you, Sandra, that it should be just Chief Cato picking those 3 people. I would put that in-house, not that I think we'll do anything wrong, but I just think it would be better with our city manager. And then it also says in here by council approval, by mayor and council approval. I just think that we need some kind of experience. I wouldn't know.
Yeah. I feel better having outside people, you know, do it at first because this is all new to us, this technology.
One of the concerns that expressed to me is the fact that we were elected to be the policy review board for the city as elected officials. And if there's a policy problem with the police department, we should be called in. The city council should be called in, and we should do the review of policy. And if there's a problem, we should respond to that policy. And if someone needs to be fired, we should fire them. But at the same time, to me, when we start trying to appoint 7 people, we're going to have a hard time to get 7 people together to start with that are willing to serve on this board. Because the minute he hits, and he will hit, they'll start dropping off the committee like flies. So
Well, we can't
we
drop
are the
off,
ones that
we're still here.
yeah, but we were elected and we chose
But we still could
to
drop
take
off
this
if we
position.
wanted to drop off.
No, we're not going to drop off. But I think it's our responsibility to jump up, to step up to the table and review policy. And if there's a problem, we need to address it. Not somebody
No,
else.
we haven't been able to take care of anything else. We've had
We haven't
complaints.
tried. Since I've been on board. Since we've been on board, we have not been a part of a review. I haven't.
No, but just talking to the citizens, I mean, I gave you some names and numbers
And I
of people
called one,
and,
I
you
have
know.
not called the others, I called one, and I did talk to them. And I heard some stuff, and I expressed concern over that to them and to you.
But we haven't been able to solve any of that. Nothing has been done at all.
It's our responsibility, though, to do. It's this group's responsibility.
So I would say at this point, did you have a comment? Okay. At this point, again, we need to make a decision if we're going to continue to work through this process tonight, or whether we're going to pull this and continue to discuss it further and reach some type of resolution. I am fine either way. Dr. Downs?
I'm not too clear about what you're proposing to vote on. Are you proposing to vote on the whole thing, both pages, or you just are proposing to
No,
vote
I'm just,
on what we did at the work
I'm
session?
proposing to have a direction to either pull this from the agenda tonight and continue to work on it, or to have somebody make a motion to adopt some version of this.
If we don't get something in place, I think we need to pull the tasers and not allow the police department to use them until we get something in place.
So,
Well,
so with that, Joe, if you would like to make a motion,
I'd like to make a motion, this is the motion I'd like to make. I'd like to propose that we vote on the original resolution that we agreed on in the work session with this first page, basically, that we agreed on in the work session, without the second page items.
So-
But with the understanding that there would be an administrative review prior to this board getting the taser reviews.
okay? So you would have the resolution right here that you have in front of you, which is the first page.
Right.
And then, as an addendum to that, there will be an administrative process by which the use of force was reviewed
Right, by an outside law enforcement
by outside law enforcement.
person or body.
Okay. So
Right.
basically, we would just say administratively, section B, let's call this section 1 and section 1 and section 2. Section 2 would be done administratively.
Right, prior to presentation to this committee.
Okay. All right. Is that a motion, Dr. Downs?
That is a motion. That's what I'd like to know.
Dr. Downs has moved that we adopt the resolution as written with the following changes. Section 2 would be an administrative function that occurs prior to the Citizen Liaison Committee review of this.
Second.
We have a second. Further discussion? Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Gloria, I'm sorry, I did not hear your vote. You said aye, so we have a 3-3 vote on this. Okay? I believe that this is an important issue. Okay? I do not want to see this particular issue die. I want to see this thing continue to move forward. Okay? However, I don't feel comfortable that there's enough consensus on this to move in the right direction. Therefore, I will abstain from voting on this one, and we will throw this back to the work session, because I feel very strongly that in order to do this and do this well, this is an important issue, and I would like to continue to work on this. Okay? So the
And
motion.
also, further, our TASER approval action required us to do something along these lines.
So,
Our prior action is required
Correct.
us to do that. So we've got to either vote a majority to revoke that, or we've got to go forward with it.
I think we'll have more time in a work session to actually discuss it. I mean, we've read it in like 5 or 10 minutes, and I don't feel comfortable voting one way or another, but you have to vote no when you don't understand the long-term voting. So,
Okay? So we will continue to have a good faith effort to resolve this issue. Okay. Are there any other items to come before the council? Hearing none, we will stand adjourned.
Can I say something real quick? I thought that on the agenda today, it was supposed to be concerning the gate, y'all was supposed to be concerning the gates, being put up at West Point Housing Authority.
No.
You sure?
yeah.
Or did y'all change the agenda because you got the information that we were kind of?
You're welcome to come look at our book.
Is it, no, I don't need to look at your book.
No, our agenda, it was not on the agenda for tonight, for today.
Okay,
We have
well-
simply had a request, and we'll spend the next month working through that process.
Oh, okay, well, that's not the information I got, but, my thing is, in the day, yeah, it was said in the newspaper. Because we can't, I mean, is it a problem if we come to voice our concerns?
At the work session, absolutely not.
Oh, okay, well, that's all I wanted to know. So when will you be discussing that issue?
Our next work session will be Tuesday, September 25th at 6 p.m.
Okay, well, I'm gonna go ahead and let you know before time, we will bring a group, so nobody won't have to call you and let you know. It's gonna be a lot of us coming to voice our concerns towards the gate, so you won't change the agenda that time.
Christie, can I make a suggestion as well to you? This is ultimately a decision that is made by the West Point Housing Authority Board. Okay? The Housing Authority Board has simply asked us a question or made a request of us. We don't even know if we can do that. We don't know if that point is legal or not.
Oh,
Okay? So we have to have legal opinion, so we're a long way from making that decision. I would suggest that you spend some time talking to your housing authority.
I will.
Because that's ultimately the decision-making body on this. We can decide whether or not putting the gates on the streets are legal. But the housing authority, it's their property, and they're the ones that are proposing to implement the safety and security features.
Okay.
When the city have an input on it though?
Just on whether or not we would allow the gates to be placed on city
But the
streets.
majority of you voted for it, was said that y'all would approve for it to be put up. That's the thing that we're reading in the newspaper, and it's saying that y'all was going to discuss it this Thursday, and I'm getting it from the newspaper, Julie.
Which one?
I do believe that it was a True Time? Valentine, one of them. I know
Well,
it was
he's sitting
in
right there.
But
I just want to be real clear, because when you speak out about the integrity of this council, that we know that you're coming and we change an agenda, we don't do that for anybody. The agenda is set and we do that, Christie. You're insulting everyone that sits on this
Well,
board.
y'all
And
have
we don't,
insulted
well,
us.
Christie, we're not here to insult you and we're not here to hide anything from you. We are here to go by an agenda and to conduct the business of the city, and we will do it respectfully.
Okay, and we have done it respectfully.
Right now, you're not, and I'm
Okay,
just
so
gonna
I'm
stop
Okay.
it for you.
Well, the meeting has been adjourned. The next work session will be on Tuesday, September the 25th.